Have you ever stopped to ask yourself a question so uncomfortable that your mind immediately tried to escape it? Not because the answer was impossible to find, but because finding it would force you to admit that the world you trusted was never as solid as you believed. Every generation inherits a story. Every society builds a script. Every institution asks you to play your role without ever reading the entire play. You are told what matters. You are told what to fear. You are told who deserves your attention, who deserves your outrage, and when it is finally time to move on. But what if the greatest deception in history was never about one event, one politician, one election, or one tragedy? What if the real deception was convincing ordinary people that someone else was always thinking for them? When news breaks, millions of people experience the same ritual. Screens light up, notifications arrive. Headlines race each other across every platform. Within minutes, experts appear. Commentators explain what happened. Influencers tell everyone what it means. Friends repeat what they have heard. Opponents repeat something entirely different. Before the facts have settled, opinions have hardened. Before evidence has been examined, emotional sides have already been chosen. It happens so quickly that very few people ever notice the process itself. They become participants in a machine they never consciously agreed to join. The conversations surrounding Charlie Kirk's death, like many major public events, became more than a discussion about one individual. It became a mirror reflecting something much larger about modern society. It revealed how rapidly information moves, how quickly narratives compete, and how easily people can mistake certainty for understanding. That observation is not proof of a grand conspiracy. It is a reminder that human beings naturally seek simple explanations during moments of uncertainty. Think about how often people ask, "What should I believe?" instead of asking, "How can I evaluate what I am hearing?" Those are completely different questions. The first hands your judgment to someone else. The second demands effort, patience, and humility. One creates followers. The other creates independent thinkers. History shows that every era has had powerful institutions capable of shaping public opinion. Governments have done it. Corporations have done it. Political movements have done it. News organizations have done it. Religious authorities have done it. Activists have done it. None of this is new. What changes is the technology. The printing press accelerated ideas. Radio amplified voices. Television transformed politics into performance. The internet removed barriers. Social media compressed days of conversation into seconds. Artificial intelligence now accelerates the production of words, images, and videos faster than any previous generation imagined possible. The result is not simply more information. The result is more competition for your attention. Attention has become one of the most valuable resources on Earth. Entire industries fight for it every second of every day. Every notification is a request. Every headline is a bid. Every algorithm is making predictions about what will keep you engaged for just one more minute. The longer you stay, the more valuable your attention becomes. That is where the real question begins. If attention is valuable, then who benefits from directing it? Not because every institution is dishonest, but because every institution has incentives. Businesses seek profit, politicians seek votes, advocacy groups seek influence, media organizations seek audiences, individuals seek recognition. Understanding incentives does not automatically prove deception, but ignoring incentives almost guarantees misunderstanding. The greatest illusion is rarely a single lie. It is the comforting belief that the people delivering information have no motivations of their own. Human beings are motivated by values, ambitions, fears, reputations, careers, and communities. Those motivations shape decisions, whether we recognize them or not. Critical thinking begins when we acknowledge that reality, instead of pretending objectivity, is effortless. There is another reason people cling tightly to familiar narratives. Certainty feels safe. Doubt feels dangerous. When someone challenges a deeply held belief, it often feels like a personal attack rather than an invitation to investigate. Psychologists have long observed that people can become emotionally attached to ideas because those ideas become intertwined with identity. Once belief becomes identity, disagreement can feel like rejection. Imagine standing in a crowded room where everyone applauds at exactly the same moment. Would you clap because you genuinely agreed, or because remaining silent would make you feel exposed? Social pressure rarely announces itself. It whispers. It suggests that belonging matters more than curiosity. It rewards agreement and quietly punishes hesitation. Over time, many people stop asking difficult questions, not because they lack intelligence, but because they value acceptance. None of this means every popular belief is false. It means popularity is not evidence. Repetition is not verification. Confidence is not accuracy. Emotion is not proof. These distinctions matter because they protect us from becoming prisoners of our own assumptions. Real intellectual courage is surprisingly quiet. It is the willingness to say, "I don't know yet." It is the discipline to wait for evidence instead of rushing towards certainty. It is the strength to revise your opinion when better information appears. That kind of humility may never trend online, but it has always been one of the foundations of honest inquiry. The biggest scam in history may not be a single organization, ideology, or event. It may be the habit of outsourcing our judgment. Every time we allow someone else to decide what deserves our outrage, our admiration, or our fear, without examining the evidence ourselves, we surrender a small piece of our independence. That surrender often feels convenient. Over time, it becomes invisible. Freedom is not merely the ability to speak. It is also the willingness to think before speaking. It is the patience to distinguish verified facts from speculation, evidence from assumption, and conviction from certainty. Those distinctions become even more important during emotionally charged moments, because emotion can magnify both insight and error. So before you accept the next viral claim, before you dismiss the next uncomfortable question, before you allow another stranger to define reality on your behalf, pause for a moment and ask yourself a question that cannot be answered by an algorithm, a headline, or a crowd. Did I reach this conclusion because I examined the evidence, or because someone else handed me the conclusion first? The answer to that question may reveal far more about the world than any single news story ever could. And if enough people begin asking it, not with anger, but with discipline, then perhaps the greatest illusion does not become stronger. Perhaps, little by little, it begins to lose its power. The most dangerous prison has never been built with concrete walls. It has never required iron bars, armed guards, or locked gates. Its walls are constructed from assumptions that go unquestioned. Its bars are forged from habits repeated so often they become invisible. Its locks are made from fear. The fear of standing alone, the fear of admitting uncertainty, and perhaps most of all, the fear of discovering that certainty was never earned in the first place. That prison exists anywhere people stop examining ideas and begin defending them, simply because those ideas have become familiar. Once that happens, freedom is no longer measured by what a person is allowed to say. It is measured by what they are willing to question. Every day begins with a choice most people never recognize. Before your feet touch the floor, someone is already competing for your attention. A notification vibrates, a headline appears, a trending topic flashes across the screen. It feels random, but it rarely is. Thousands of invisible decisions have already been made before that information reaches you. Algorithms rank it, editors prioritize it, platforms distribute it, communities amplify it, friends share it. By the time it reaches your eyes, it has already traveled through layers of selection. That does not automatically make it false. It simply means it did not arrive untouched. This is where critical thinking becomes more than an academic exercise. It becomes a practical survival skill. Imagine walking into a courtroom where every witness has something to gain. One seeks money, another seeks power, another seeks attention, another seeks revenge. A wise juror would not assume everyone is lying, but neither would they assume everyone is telling the whole truth. They would compare testimony, examine evidence, identify inconsistencies, and remain patient until the picture became clearer. Yet outside the courtroom, many people abandon that discipline within seconds. They choose the first explanation that feels emotionally satisfying and defend it as though their identity depends upon it. Emotion has extraordinary power. It can inspire acts of courage that change history. It can also persuade intelligent people to ignore evidence that contradicts their expectations. Strong emotion narrows attention. It encourages immediate action. Sometimes that is necessary. During an emergency, hesitation can be dangerous, but public debate is rarely an emergency, even when it feels like one. The urgency is often manufactured because urgency discourages reflection. When people feel rushed, they rely on instinct. When they rely only on instinct, they become easier to influence. Ask yourself how often you hear the phrase, "You must decide now." Decide now which side you support. Decide now who is guilty. Decide now what this event means. Decide now whether someone is a hero or a villain. The demand for instant certainty has become one of the defining features of modern communication. Yet reality is rarely instant. Investigations take time. Context takes time. Understanding takes time. Truth is often slower than speculation, but that does not make speculation more reliable. One of the oldest tricks in persuasion is not convincing people to believe something false. It is convincing them they already know enough. Once a person believes the case is closed, curiosity disappears. Questions stop. Exploration ends. Confidence replaces investigation. From that moment forward, new evidence is evaluated not for its accuracy, but for whether it supports an existing conclusion. The mind becomes less like a window and more like a fortress. History offers countless reminders that societies can become convinced of ideas later proven incomplete or entirely wrong. Scientific theories have changed. Economic assumptions have shifted. Political narratives have been rewritten. Journalists have corrected major stories. Governments have admitted mistakes. Courts have overturned convictions. None of this proves that every accepted belief is false. It proves that human beings are capable of error regardless of education, status, or influence. Recognizing that possibility is not cynicism. It is intellectual maturity. Consider how language itself shapes perception. Labels are powerful because they simplify complex realities. Once a label is attached to a person or an idea, many people stop examining the details. Labels save time, but they can also eliminate nuance. They reduce complicated human experiences into categories that are easier to defend than to understand. Real life rarely fits neatly inside those categories. Reality is often untidy, contradictory, and resistant to simple explanations. There is another force quietly shaping the way people interpret the world: repetition. The human brain naturally becomes more comfortable with ideas it encounters repeatedly. Familiarity creates confidence even when evidence remains weak. Advertisers have understood this for generations. Political campaigns understand it. Social movements understand it. Repetition alone does not determine truth, but it influences perception far more than most people realize. An idea heard 100 times can begin to feel self-evident simply because it has become familiar. That is why independent thinking requires deliberate effort. It asks you to separate familiarity from accuracy. It asks you to distinguish confidence from competence. It asks you to resist the temptation to mistake popularity for proof. These habits are neither glamorous nor easy. They require patience in a culture that rewards speed. They require humility in an environment that celebrates certainty. They require discipline in a world overflowing with distraction. Perhaps the greatest challenge is recognizing our own vulnerability. It is comforting to believe manipulation only affects other people. We imagine ourselves immune while assuming everyone else is influenced. Yet the very belief that we cannot be influenced often makes us more susceptible. Awareness is not a permanent shield. Every person has blind spots. Every person has emotional triggers. Every person has moments when fatigue, stress, excitement, or fear weaken careful judgment. Accepting that reality is not a sign of weakness. It is the beginning of wisdom. The strongest mind is not the one that never changes. It is the one that changes for good reasons. It welcomes evidence without surrendering discernment. It resists pressure without rejecting cooperation. It remains open without becoming gullible. That balance is difficult because it demands constant self-examination. It asks uncomfortable questions, not only about institutions and public figures, but also about ourselves. Why do certain stories immediately feel believable? Why do certain voices instantly earn our trust? Why do some facts make us defensive while others make us feel validated? Those questions reveal as much about the observer as they do about the information being observed. If there is a lesson hidden beneath every heated public debate, every viral controversy, and every moment of national attention, it is this: your greatest responsibility is not to arrive at conclusions quickly. Your greatest responsibility is to arrive at them honestly. Honest conclusions require evidence. Honest conclusions require patience. Honest conclusions require the courage to say, "I may have been mistaken." That sentence has changed more lives than pride ever has. The future will not belong to those who shout the loudest or react the fastest. It will belong to those who can think clearly while everyone else is rushing towards certainty. It will belong to those who can separate facts from assumptions, evidence from emotion, and conviction from unquestioned loyalty. Those people will not always be the most popular. They may even stand alone for a time. But history has repeatedly shown that progress often begins with individuals who cared more about understanding reality than winning approval. And perhaps that is where genuine freedom begins, not when someone hands you the answers, but when you decide that your own mind is worth the effort of asking better questions.